The footage has just surfaced, and it's sending shockwaves through legal circles, social media, and the music industry alike. Sean Diddy Combs, the hip-hop mogul turned defendant in the high-profile SDNY case, is seen walking through a prison corridor with something concealed in his hands, an object that has instantly become the subject of feverish speculation. This isn't just another viral clip. This is footage that could change the trajectory of one of the most watched legal battles of the decade. The CCTV recording, grainy but unmistakable, shows Diddy moving with an air of caution, every step deliberate. His head tilts slightly, eyes darting, and his hand clutches a small, unassuming bottle against his torso, hidden just enough to evade the casual glance of prison guards patrolling the hall. Fellow inmates pass by, some casting curious looks, while others pretend not to notice. The tension in the corridor is palpable, even in the muted grayscale of the CCTV feed. Within minutes of the footage being uploaded to secure law enforcement servers, chaos erupted inside the prison walls. Guards replayed the video on loop, trying to analyze Diddy's movements, and whispers of concern floated through the hallways. Could this be alcohol, drugs, medication, or something even more dangerous? Inmates speculated in hushed tones, and staff debated whether standard protocols had been breached. Before we move on, I need to be completely honest with you. Every time I check the stats, my heart drops, because almost 99% of you watch these videos, but never subscribe. Your one click truly makes a huge difference. It pushes stories like this into the spotlight so more people can see what's really happening. So please take a moment to subscribe. It means more than you know. And don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing your locations. It reminds me that no matter how far apart we are, these stories still connect us. Every second of the video was scrutinized, frame by frame, as the prison administration tried to gauge the potential threat. Meanwhile, back in Manhattan, SDNY prosecutors were immediately alerted. The footage was flagged as potentially critical evidence in the ongoing case against Diddy. With his trial already a media spectacle, the possibility of new incriminating evidence being added to the mix threatened to shift the balance dramatically. Prosecutors described the clip as troubling and requiring urgent review, a statement that only intensified the media frenzy. News outlets picked up the story within hours, with headlines screaming about the hidden bottle and Diddy's alleged prison misbehavior. Social media erupted with speculation, some defending him, citing his celebrity status, and claiming the video was being taken out of context, while others argued it proved reckless behavior. Hashtags related to the footage trended worldwide, and fan reactions ranged from incredulous disbelief to furious outrage. Memes proliferated, some humorous, some dark, all fueling the viral firestorm. Legal analysts immediately weighed in, dissecting the footage for clues. Experts debated what the object could be, considering the possible legal consequences of possession if it were deemed contraband. Could this be a violation of prison rules severe enough to influence his ongoing trial? Or was it something benign, a simple misunderstanding blown out of proportion by the media? Every scenario carried potential ramifications, and the tension in the courtroom, as well as online, grew exponentially. For Diddy's defense team, the emergence of the footage was a nightmare. Their initial statements emphasized that the video was incomplete and taken out of context, asserting that it did not show the full story. They hinted that the footage might be manipulated or that what Diddy held in his hand was completely innocent. Despite these assurances, the clip was enough to send shockwaves through the legal system and the public, raising questions about his conduct, credibility, and the integrity of prison oversight. The public's fascination with Diddy's life, both inside and outside prison walls, only magnified the impact of the footage. Social media platforms exploded with comments, debates, and conspiracy theories. Some fans speculated that the bottle contained medication prescribed to Diddy, while others suggested alcohol or even contraband that could potentially harm others. Journalists and analysts weighed in, offering expert opinions, insider leaks, and historical comparisons to other high-profile prison controversies. And just as the footage went viral, an emergency hearing was called in the SDNY court. The sudden, urgent nature of this hearing sent shockwaves through legal circles. Why now? Was the footage enough to change the course of Diddy's trial? And most importantly, what was in that bottle? The mystery lingered, teasing the possibility of revelations that could alter the case, impact sentencing, and further fuel the public frenzy surrounding one of the most scrutinized figures in modern music history. This was just the beginning. The grainy CCTV footage of Diddy with a hidden bottle had set off a chain reaction, creating legal, media, and social storms. Experts warned that the story was far from over and hinted at further surprises in the coming hours. For millions watching around the world, the question remained, what exactly was Diddy hiding? And could it finally tip the scales of justice? As the prison reviewed the footage and SDNY prepared for its emergency session, tension hung heavy over every step, every whisper, and every decision. One thing was clear, the hidden bottle was not just a simple object. It was a symbol of potential scandal, a spark capable of igniting explosive consequences. The emergence of the hidden bottle footage didn't just create a media frenzy, it sent shockwaves through the prison itself. As the video circulated internally, prison staff and inmates alike began whispering about what exactly Diddy had concealed. Some corrections officers described the footage as alarming, highlighting that even a small contraband item could trigger a cascade of disciplinary action within the facility. The mere suggestion that Diddy had violated prison regulations sent administrators scrambling to evaluate potential breaches in security protocols. Several prison insiders, speaking on condition of anonymity, revealed that this type of incident is taken extremely seriously. Anytime an inmate, especially someone as high-profile as Diddy, moves through the corridors with an unidentified object, it sets off alarms, one officer explained. It's not just about what the object is, it's about the precedent it sets and the risk it carries. We have to consider safety, influence on other inmates, and potential legal implications. Another source suggested that staff members immediately reviewed all CCTV footage from surrounding areas to track whether Diddy had received the item from someone else, hinting at the potential for broader implications. Inmates themselves contributed to the growing speculation. A few reportedly whispered that Diddy had something special hidden, while others argued that the media would overreact to a minor infraction. But the high stakes of Diddy's legal situation amplified every rumor. For many prisoners, the presence of a celebrity in the system created a heightened sense of scrutiny and tension. Some feared that the situation could escalate into disciplinary hearings or even additional charges if the object was deemed contraband. Others simply saw it as another sensationalized story that would inevitably dominate the news. Meanwhile, SDNY prosecutors wasted no time in responding to the footage. Sources inside the office revealed that the prosecution team convened immediately after reviewing the video. Legal strategists debated whether the clip could be introduced as evidence of misconduct that might influence sentencing or the court's perception of Diddy's character. Even if it's minor, the optics are catastrophic, one analyst noted. Judges and juries are not blind to patterns of behavior. If the footage suggests recklessness or disregard for rules, it could be leveraged against him. Defense attorneys scrambled to craft a counter-narrative. Public statements were issued emphasizing that the video was misleading and taken out of context, asserting that Diddy's actions were entirely innocent. Yet the defense faced a significant challenge. The footage was unambiguous in showing a concealed item being carried through a prison corridor. Even without knowing the contents, the act itself became fodder for public judgment and legal scrutiny. Analysts noted that the defense needed a clear explanation, ideally corroborated by witnesses or documentation, to prevent the video from becoming a permanent stain on Diddy's trial. The emergency hearing in SDNY was scheduled almost immediately after the footage went public. Court clerks and lawyers scrambled to adjust schedules as the sudden appearance of potential new evidence demanded immediate judicial review. The hearing promised to focus on whether the footage should be formally admitted as evidence, whether it could influence bail or sentencing decisions, and whether additional investigation was required. For Diddy's legal team, the stakes couldn't have been higher. A single misstep during this emergency session could escalate into a broader crisis, amplifying both legal and public relations challenges. Media coverage intensified as journalists rushed to analyze every frame of the CCTV recording. Experts debated the angle of Diddy's hand, the timing of his movements, and even the behavior of nearby inmates and guards. Some suggested that the way he carried the bottle indicated intent to conceal contraband, while others argued that he might have been holding something harmless, such as a prescription medication. Opinion segments, panel discussions, and live-stream commentary flooded news outlets, feeding public curiosity and speculation. Public reaction was divided. Social media platforms exploded with commentary ranging from outrage to staunch defense of the musician. Fans argued that Diddy had been unfairly scrutinized due to his fame, while critics saw the incident as proof of recklessness and disregard for rules. Memes proliferated, blending humor and criticism, and trending hashtags ensured that the story reached millions within hours. Analysts noted that the intensity of the online reaction reflected both the celebrity's cultural influence and the heightened stakes of the ongoing legal proceedings. Inside the prison, administrators reviewed standard procedures for contraband detection and inmate monitoring. Reports indicated that staff were reevaluating surveillance protocols, especially for high-profile inmates. Security officers emphasized that the presence of a concealed item, no matter its size, was a serious infraction. In a high-profile case, even minor violations can become major crises, one officer explained. We have to respond appropriately, both to ensure safety and to maintain order. The internal review highlighted the complex dynamics of housing celebrity inmates, where standard protocols intersect with unprecedented public scrutiny. As the emergency SDNY hearing approached, legal analysts predicted a highly charged courtroom atmosphere. Lawyers and prosecutors were expected to present arguments regarding the significance of the footage, its admissibility, and the potential implications for Diddy's trial. Observers speculated that the session could include witness testimonies from prison staff, security footage analysis, and detailed discussion of prison regulations. Every participant understood that the courtroom showdown could influence public perception and legal outcomes in ways that might extend far beyond the walls of the courthouse. The emergency SDNY hearing opened amid intense media scrutiny. Reporters filled the gallery, cameras pointed directly at Diddy's legal team, while prosecutors prepared to argue the significance of the newly surfaced CCTV footage. The courtroom itself seemed tense, buzzing with anticipation as every observer sensed that this session could dramatically impact the high-profile case. From the very beginning, arguments centered on the footage's authenticity and interpretation. Prosecutors presented the CCTV clip frame by frame, highlighting Diddy's movements and the subtle concealment of an unidentified item. The image is clear, the lead prosecutor asserted. What we see here is a deliberate act to hide contraband, a violation that cannot be ignored. Their tone suggested that, regardless of the item's contents, Diddy's actions reflected a disregard for rules which could influence perceptions of his character in the ongoing trial. The defense quickly countered, attempting to dismantle the prosecution's narrative. Lawyers emphasized that the footage was being taken out of context. They argued that there was no concrete proof that the item was illegal or intended to violate prison regulations. This video shows nothing more than a man holding an object, one defense attorney stated firmly. It is presumptuous to conclude intent without knowing the nature of the object. Experts brought in by the defense offered technical insights, analyzing angles, lighting, and pixel distortion to suggest that the footage could be misleading or ambiguous. Meanwhile, the judge maintained a delicate balance, urging both sides to avoid speculation and stick to evidence-based arguments. Observers noted the subtle tension in the room. The prosecution pushed for immediate recognition of the clip as indicative of misconduct, while the defense worked tirelessly to frame it as an innocuous incident. The judge's interjections highlighted the fine line between prison regulations, media influence, and legal interpretation. We must carefully consider the admissibility and relevance of this footage, the judge reminded counsel. Assumptions about intent cannot substitute for evidence. Adding fuel to the fire, a group of expert analysts was brought in to break down the footage. Security consultants, former corrections officers, and legal analysts testified on various aspects. Some emphasized the danger of contraband in prisons, explaining how even small bottles can be used to hide harmful substances. Others argued that minor infractions, especially by high-profile inmates, often become exaggerated in media narratives. Their testimonies reflected the complexity of the situation. The footage was not merely about what was hidden, but what the concealment implied in a highly controlled environment. Outside the courtroom, media outlets dissected every detail. Social media exploded with breakdowns of the footage, with influencers and legal commentators offering varied opinions. Some argued that Diddy's behavior suggested recklessness, while others believed the media was inflating a minor incident for clicks. Hashtags began trending globally, turning the emergency hearing into a digital spectacle. Memes, opinion threads, and heated debates ensured that the story reached millions, intensifying pressure on both the legal team and the court. Within the courtroom, the tension escalated when corrections officers who had observed Diddy's movements in real time were called to testify. Their accounts added layers of complexity. Some described noticing a small, suspicious item, while others emphasized that no overt rule-breaking occurred. This divergence in testimony created a legal gray area, forcing the judge to weigh conflicting accounts while maintaining focus on factual evidence. The hearing became a delicate dance between subjective perception and objective documentation. In addition to direct testimony, forensic video analysts examined the footage for signs of tampering or misinterpretation. Their analyses considered lighting angles, shadows, and frame timing. Video evidence must be scrutinized meticulously, one analyst explained. Even a slight distortion can dramatically alter perception, especially when the subject is high profile and every gesture is magnified. Their detailed breakdown added another layer of intrigue, illustrating the challenges of interpreting seemingly straightforward footage under intense scrutiny. Throughout the hearing, Diddy himself remained calm but attentive. Legal experts watching noted his composed demeanor, suggesting that it could work in his favor. Unlike many high-profile defendants whose body language often betrays tension, Diddy's neutral presence allowed the courtroom to focus on the legal arguments rather than his personal reactions. This strategic composure may have influenced both media coverage and judicial perception, demonstrating the intricate interplay between behavior, public image, and legal strategy. The courtroom drama was punctuated by unexpected revelations. Witnesses testified about prior incidents involving high-profile inmates, providing context for the judge and attorneys. Some examples underscored the risks posed by contraband, while others illustrated how celebrity cases are frequently magnified in the media. These insights highlighted that Diddy's situation was not isolated, but part of a broader conversation about prison security, public perception, and the judicial system's treatment of high-profile defendants. As the hearing concluded for the day, the judge announced that a ruling on the footage's admissibility would be made promptly. Both sides left the courtroom with strategic recalibrations. Prosecutors were buoyed by the detailed analysis and the apparent clarity of the footage, while the defense prepared counter-arguments emphasizing ambiguity, intent, and context. The legal chessboard was set, and the stakes could not have been higher. The morning after the emergency SDNY hearing, the story exploded across social media, news outlets, and legal forums. The clip of Diddy holding the hidden bottle circulated rapidly, with snippets and screen grabs dissected by influencers, journalists, and ordinary viewers alike. Twitter threads exploded with speculation, Instagram reels showed slow-motion breakdowns of every movement, and TikTok users recreated the scene for dramatic effect. The hashtag Diddy CCTV went viral within hours, trending worldwide and ensuring that even casual news consumers were drawn into the drama. The public reaction was polarized. Some argued that Diddy's actions were a blatant violation of prison rules, calling for immediate disciplinary measures and legal consequences. Comments ranged from angered outrage to disappointed disbelief, emphasizing that high-profile inmates are often expected to model behavior even more stringently than others. On the opposite side, a vocal segment defended him, arguing that the media was exaggerating a minor incident for clicks and sensationalism. "We don't even know what was in the bottle," one widely shared tweet read, reflecting a growing debate over context versus perception. Meanwhile, inside the prison, administrators and corrections officers scrambled to respond. Security teams reviewed internal footage to determine whether this was an isolated incident or indicative of a larger issue with contraband smuggling. Meetings were held behind closed doors, with officials discussing disciplinary procedures, potential restrictions, and how to manage a high-profile inmate under extreme public scrutiny. The tension within the facility mirrored the chaos outside, highlighting the challenges of maintaining order while balancing the rights and safety of inmates. Prison disciplinary boards began preliminary investigations. Internal memos suggested that Diddy could face sanctions ranging from restricted visitation to temporary loss of privileges. Yet officials were acutely aware that any action would be closely scrutinized by the media and could influence public perception of the entire correction system. Lawyers for the prosecution argued that the footage alone should trigger immediate consequences, citing prison safety concerns, while the defense continued to emphasize ambiguity, insisting that discipline based solely on speculative interpretation would be unfair and legally questionable. The hearing's fallout also reached political circles. Legislators and public safety advocates cited the incident in discussions about prison policy, security measures, and the treatment of celebrity inmates. Some used it to argue for stricter contraband controls, while others questioned the ethics of turning prison behavior into a media spectacle. This intersection of law, policy, and public opinion created a complex environment where every decision carried consequences far beyond the walls of the facility. Media outlets capitalized on the story's virality. Television programs dedicated segments to analyzing Diddy's movements frame by frame, with experts speculating about the implications of the bottle and potential prison rule violations. Legal commentators debated the likelihood of additional charges or modifications to sentencing, emphasizing that even minor infractions in prison can have ripple effects. Meanwhile, social media continued to amplify narratives, blending factual reporting with sensational speculation, ensuring that the story remained in public consciousness. Fans and critics alike mobilized online. Supporters launched campaigns defending Diddy, claiming that the footage did not capture intent and warning against trial by social media. Critics amplified the narrative of misconduct, using every angle of the video to suggest deliberate rule-breaking. Viral polls, hashtag campaigns, and influencer commentary created a digital ecosystem where public opinion exerted unprecedented pressure on both legal teams and prison officials. The boundaries between justice, media, and entertainment blurred, underscoring the extraordinary stakes of the incident. Back in the SDNY courtroom, legal teams began preparing for potential appeals and motions related to the footage's impact. Both prosecution and defense realized that even if the footage were deemed admissible, the court of public opinion had already formed strong, often contradictory judgments. Attorneys strategized on how to mitigate reputational damage while maintaining focus on legal arguments, aware that public perception could indirectly influence jurors, officials, and media narratives. Prison security experts weighed in on how high-profile inmates are managed. Some emphasize the risks associated with celebrity attention, arguing that it creates additional pressures on guards, administrators, and inmates alike. Others highlighted that minor rule infractions often escalate in high-profile cases because every movement is magnified by cameras and social media. The analysis underscored a larger systemic issue. Prisons are designed to enforce rules consistently, but celebrity cases introduce variables that complicate enforcement, perception, and institutional response. The SDNY courtroom was electric as proceedings resumed following the viral explosion of the prison CCTV footage. The defense team, acutely aware that the public narrative had already taken on a life of its own, prepared meticulously for what was shaping up to be a high-stakes legal confrontation. Every angle, every frame of the footage was dissected to ensure that any ambiguity could be leveraged in Diddy's favor. The strategy was clear: emphasize interpretation, context, and the limits of what the footage actually proved, countering the emotional weight carried by viral clips on social media. Expert witnesses were summoned to analyze the footage in detail. Forensic video analysts examined lighting, angles, frame rates, and potential optical illusions that could have influenced viewers' perceptions. The defense argued that shadows and camera placement might have created misleading impressions of Diddy's actions, insisting that without definitive proof of intent or content, any disciplinary conclusions would be premature. Meanwhile, Prosecution experts insisted that the footage clearly depicted a violation of prison regulations, emphasizing the precise timing of Diddy's movements, his repeated concealment, and behavioral cues interpreted as intentional. The courtroom debates intensified as legal teams clashed over admissibility, interpretation, and the weight of evidence. The judge, fully aware of the media scrutiny surrounding the case, cautioned both sides to remain factual, emphasizing that public opinion could not dictate judicial outcomes. However, attorneys knew that controlling the narrative outside the courtroom was equally critical. Press releases, social media statements, and curated media appearances were strategically deployed, creating a dual-front battle, one in court and one in the court of public opinion. Meanwhile, Diddy himself remained a silent but visible presence. Footage of him entering the courtroom, stoic and composed, was broadcast across major networks. Analysts noted his body language, interpreting a calm demeanor as a deliberate messaging tactic, signaling confidence and control despite the chaos swirling around him. Inside, his legal team coordinated closely with him, preparing responses to every line of questioning, potential cross-examination, and media leak. Maintaining composure under intense scrutiny became a performance in itself, further complicating public perception of the case. The prosecution introduced additional context to strengthen their argument. They presented records indicating prior minor infractions within the facility, framing the CCTV incident as part of a pattern rather than an isolated occurrence. The defense countered vigorously, arguing that unrelated past incidents should not prejudice the jury or influence disciplinary decisions in the current scenario. Each side's maneuvers revealed not only legal strategy, but also the psychological dimensions of courtroom performance, with media-savvy lawyers carefully calibrating statements to resonate both legally and publicly. Outside the courtroom, the social media storm showed no signs of abating. Influencers, legal analysts, and commentators debated procedural nuances, scrutinizing every clip of the footage and courtroom appearance. Some released side-by-side comparisons of the original footage with slowed-down or enhanced versions, sparking viral conversations about perception, legality, and the boundaries of digital evidence. Hashtags multiplied, polls gauged public opinion, and forums became battlegrounds for speculation, analysis, and conspiracy theories, turning the incident into a cultural phenomenon far beyond the scope of a typical disciplinary case. Legal scholars highlighted the broader implications of the case. The debate touched on the admissibility of digital evidence, privacy rights of inmates, the ethical responsibilities of media in reporting on high-profile cases, and the potential for public opinion to indirectly influence judicial proceedings. Law review articles and opinion pieces appeared rapidly online, dissecting each procedural maneuver, precedent, and argument. Analysts emphasized that this case could set important benchmarks for how similar incidents are handled in the future, both legally and institutionally. In prison, officials carefully monitored Diddy's interactions and movements, aware that any further incident would not only complicate legal proceedings, but could also escalate media scrutiny. Corrections officers reported heightened tension among other inmates, some emboldened by public attention, others anxious about stricter enforcement measures. Administrators faced the dual challenge of maintaining order while avoiding actions that could be interpreted as punitive or biased due to the high-profile nature of the inmate. As the SDNY hearing progressed into its second week, tensions in the courtroom reached unprecedented levels. Lawyers, journalists, and onlookers all sensed that this phase of the case could become the defining turning point. Unexpected developments unfolded when the prosecution introduced new witness testimony, revealing previously undisclosed interactions between Diddy and other inmates on the day of the CCTV incident. The witnesses' statements suggested coordination and subtle attempts to bypass routine surveillance, raising complex questions about intent and accountability. Each word reverberated through the courtroom, amplifying the gravity of the situation. The defense, taken aback by the sudden introduction of these testimonies, moved quickly to question credibility. Cross-examinations were rigorous, highlighting inconsistencies in the witnesses' accounts and scrutinizing potential motives to influence the narrative. The tension was palpable as attorneys employed tactical pauses, sharp objections, and pointed questions to undermine assertions that could harm Diddy's case. The courtroom atmosphere, already charged with media attention, became increasingly theatrical. Every exchange a delicate balance of strategy, persuasion, and perception management. Meanwhile, the CCTV footage itself was subjected to deeper scrutiny. Analysts introduced multi-angle enhancements, slow-motion playback, and contextual overlays, attempting to clarify the precise sequence of events. The footage, once seemingly straightforward, now became a nuanced puzzle. Small movements, hand positions, and timing discrepancies were dissected minutely. Legal commentators debated whether the new interpretation strengthened or weakened the prosecution's position. The key question remained: did Diddy deliberately conceal the bottle, or was this an unfortunate misunderstanding amplified by camera angles and optical illusions? Adding further complexity, the defense team revealed surveillance from an earlier time of the day showing Diddy's interactions in common areas, portraying him as compliant and cooperative with prison protocols. This evidence was intended to counter claims of a calculated rule violation, framing the CCTV incident as an anomaly rather than part of a behavioral pattern. Media outlets quickly juxtaposed clips from both sequences, creating contrasting narratives that fueled public debate. Online commentators dissected everything from body language to attire, further blurring the lines between legal reality and public spectacle. The courtroom drama intensified when legal experts testified about the institutional handling of evidence. Questions emerged regarding the chain of custody for the footage, technical calibration of cameras, and the adequacy of prison monitoring protocols. The defense argued that procedural flaws could compromise the validity of the evidence, potentially undermining the prosecution's case. In contrast, prosecutors emphasized that the footage, regardless of minor technical considerations, presented a clear record of actions within a controlled environment, reinforcing the need for accountability. Each argument was layered, combining technical detail with broader legal implications. Diddy himself remained a silent, magnetic presence in the courtroom. Observers noted subtle shifts in demeanor: a clenched jaw during prosecution testimony, a momentary glance at his attorneys, and an almost imperceptible sigh as witness after witness painted varying pictures of his behavior. Analysts speculated that these micro-reactions conveyed a strategic awareness, an unspoken messaging tactic signaling engagement, composure, and readiness to respond if necessary. Social media buzzed with clips capturing these subtle gestures, adding a new layer of intrigue to an already sensational narrative. Unexpectedly, a surprise witness emerged, an administrative staff member who had briefly observed the corridor where the alleged concealment occurred. Their testimony introduced minor but critical details about the environment, including lighting conditions, routine checks, and spatial limitations, which the defense argued could have made the incident appear more suspicious than it actually was. This revelation prompted immediate debate among legal scholars, who noted that such environmental context could be pivotal in challenging interpretations of intent and culpability. Public engagement with the case intensified further as these revelations were broadcast live and analyzed extensively online. Memes, breakdowns, and timeline reconstructions proliferated across platforms, each adding speculation and narrative framing. The convergence of legal procedure and public perception highlighted the modern challenges of high-profile cases, the balance between procedural justice and media-driven judgment. Diddy's legal team faced the dual task of addressing technical evidence in court while managing the rapidly evolving public discourse. The final day of the emergency SDNY hearing arrived with an intensity that surpassed even the highest expectations. Media outlets flooded the courthouse, reporters jostling for position, cameras capturing every angle, while social media trended with hashtags ranging from #DiddyCCTV to #SDNY hearing. The atmosphere was electric, charged with anticipation, speculation, and palpable tension. The culmination of weeks of testimony, evidence analysis, and strategic courtroom maneuvering would now be put to the ultimate test. As proceedings began, the presiding judge addressed the courtroom with a tone that underscored the gravity of the case. Legal teams on both sides presented their final arguments, summarizing days of detailed witness testimony, multi-angle surveillance footage, and intricate procedural debates. The prosecution painted a picture of deliberate concealment, suggesting that Diddy's actions, no matter how subtle, represented a breach of institutional rules requiring accountability. The defense countered with meticulous deconstruction, emphasizing procedural flaws, ambiguous footage interpretation, and Diddy's previously cooperative behavior as evidence that the incident was a misjudged anomaly rather than intentional misconduct. The courtroom became a stage for dramatic revelations. The defense introduced one final piece of evidence, a timeline reconstruction integrating all CCTV footage, witness observations, and environmental context, designed to illustrate how lighting angles, distance, and peripheral movements could have created the perception of concealment. The prosecutor responded by dissecting every frame, every pause, and every gesture, attempting to maintain the narrative of intentionality. Each point, counterpoint, and objection sent ripples through the room, with observers noting the almost cinematic tension as the trial approached its climax. Diddy's presence remained a focal point throughout. For hours, he sat with calm composure, occasionally exchanging subtle glances with his legal team or leaning forward to catch a critical exchange. Analysts later suggested that these controlled reactions conveyed strategic awareness, conveying to both the jury and the public that Diddy was engaged, alert, and mentally prepared. Outside the courtroom, journalists and fans alike scrutinized every subtle cue, dissecting body language, facial expressions, and even clothing choices for hints about his mindset. The final witness testimony delivered one of the most unexpected turns. An inmate who had previously appeared peripheral to the case came forward with statements suggesting that several prison staff members had inconsistently monitored cell and hallway protocols that day. While minor in isolation, this revelation created doubt in the jury's mind regarding the integrity of the surveillance environment. The defense leveraged this moment to highlight procedural inconsistencies, arguing that any reasonable interpretation of the footage should account for these environmental uncertainties. The prosecution responded with controlled rebuttals, emphasizing that such minor deviations did not negate observable actions captured on camera. As deliberations commenced, the public and media attention reached unprecedented levels. Social media feeds were flooded with speculation, live reactions, and expert analyses. Commentators debated the implications of procedural challenges, potential precedents, and the broader meaning of accountability within high-security institutions. Every narrative, from legal intricacies to body language reading, became a point of discussion. The convergence of public fascination and judicial procedure highlighted the contemporary complexities of high-profile legal cases. Perception and evidence intertwined in real time, magnifying stakes beyond the courtroom walls. Finally, the verdict was announced. The judge, after reviewing all evidence, testimony, and procedural arguments, delivered a measured statement. Diddy was not found guilty of deliberate rule violation, but the court emphasized the need for heightened vigilance and procedural adherence in all correctional settings. The decision represented a nuanced balance, acknowledging ambiguities in surveillance interpretation while upholding institutional accountability. Reactions were immediate and polarized. Legal analysts praised the rigor and fairness of the ruling, while social media erupted with both celebration and criticism. Memes, reaction videos, and detailed breakdowns proliferated across platforms, each adding layers to the narrative of public perception. In the aftermath, the hearing left a lasting imprint on the SDNY system, prison surveillance policies, and public discourse surrounding celebrity legal scrutiny. Policy analysts noted that the case would likely influence future evaluations of inmate monitoring, evidence interpretation, and procedural transparency. Journalists continued to cover lingering questions, from the nuances of multi-angle surveillance analysis to the role of media in shaping high-profile legal outcomes. For Diddy, the resolution marked both a legal reprieve and an enduring media spectacle, cementing the incident as a defining moment in the intersection of celebrity, accountability, and institutional scrutiny. As the courtroom emptied and cameras dimmed, the broader narrative persisted. The Diddy CCTV case remained a study in perception, procedure, and the delicate balance of justice in a world where public attention amplifies every legal nuance. While the verdict closed one chapter, It opened ongoing discussions about surveillance, intent, and the modern landscape of high-profile legal accountability. The story's resonance, captured in footage, testimony, and relentless public interest, would remain a benchmark in contemporary legal and cultural discourse, exemplifying the complexities and contradictions that define justice under the public eye.